As the heir to a noble family, Elma Edvan has his life planned out for him. Undergo the divine blessing ceremony, get a strong class that will make Papa proud, and rule the household when the time comes. But when memories of a past life come rushing back to him, the world he's known comes crumbling down. Elma realizes the world he's in is the game he used to play, Magic World, and he chooses his favorite trash class, Heavy Knight. But dear old Papa doesn't like that one bit. So Elma's disowned by his noble father in favor of the beautiful sword saint Marie. Left to fend for himself, the Heavy Knight does what he can to survive and thrive. Elma will prove his favorite class is one of the strongest around. With his armor and sword, the Heavy Knight defeats low-level and high-level mobs alike, increasing his level as he does. Elma then registers at the Adventurers Guild, starting as an F rank. He joins a promotion quest to rank up quickly, where their raid group must defeat a level 30 ghoulhead. Though Elma's ridiculed by a fellow F rank, Tail, for his trash class, he proves his worth by doing most of the work and defeating the ghoulhead turned level 40 madhead. The raid leader and D-rank adventurer Gotan is so impressed that he grants Elma the right to claim all the drops from the raid. He even helps the Heavy Knight rank up to E. Though everything has been going well for Elma, he knows something's still missing. His current class-specific skill tree, Vow of the Heavy Armor, has proven useful, what with all the skills it's given him like Rampart Return, Disarm, and Parry. But those aren't enough. The Heavy Knight must find the skill book Smoldering Fang of Madness and become the ultimate human weapon. Though skill books are banned from being sold or bought, Elma finds what he needs in a black market store. To buy Smoldering Fang of Madness, he needs to fork out 55 million gold. And if Elma wants to earn that much money quickly, he'll need allies. As fate would have it, the Heavy Knight witnesses a jester being kicked out of a party. From overhearing their conversation, Elma believes Luz Rubis has exactly what he needs, the Great Fortune skill tree. And he's right. With their luck-boosting skills, Luz proves useful in their dungeon dive. 2 rare shields drop consecutively from the monsters they're farming, and the super rare mob, the Golden Lana, show itself just as they start to look for it. By the end of their dive, Elma and Luz take home more than 34 million gold worth of items in their inventory. Just as they're about to exit the dungeon, 2 wounded adventurers appear with a formidable enemy hot on their heels. The Dream Lord's level 50 Embryo and 3 level 40 Tin Knights. Elma orders Luz to flee with the wounded while he buys some time. But try as he might, he can't run from, let alone defeat, the high-level monsters. Just as Elma's about to meet his end, Luz returns to save him. Together, they face the Dream Lord. But even with their combined power, it seems as though all hope is lost. Elma's plan didn't work. They needed Luz to roll a 6 with her dice thrust to defeat the Embryo. But what they got was a 4. Now they're fresh out of plans. They shouldn't have gambled with their lives with a single plan. How are they supposed to get out of this? Even with Elma's vast magic world knowledge, dealing with monsters without an extra life or response just shows how this world isn't a game. Still, that doesn't mean he'll just give up. Elma has to pull all the Tin Knights away so Luz can at least land safely. But instead of falling away from the Embryo, Luz positions herself on the ceiling using acrobatic steps. This time, she'll definitely roll a 6. Luz strikes the Embryo with dice thrust, and it's a critical hit. The floating monster baby's HP drops to 0, and the Tin Knight soon follows. As the Jester lands gracefully, her level increases from 27 to 31. The Heavy Knight, mouth agape in awe, levels up from 33 to 41. It looks like Elma miscalculated. He could do nothing more than pray for Luz's good luck. But even when she's forsaken by her great luck, she nabbed the victory all by herself. Placing the Jester's hat on her head, Elma thanks her sincerely. Without her, he undoubtedly would have died. Luz stands proudly. She feels like she's gained a lot of confidence during this dungeon dive. Even though Luz has always been told she has a useless class, she acquired great items. Her dice thrust even came in handy. But that's not what Elma meant. They survived not because of Luz's class or skills. It's because of her. Ever since Elma's memories of his past life returned, he began to look at people only as classes and levels. In a way, that makes him no different from Klein and his old man. Luz risked her life to return and save Elma. Not only that, her quick wit completely changed the tides and defeated the Embryo. Luz is kind and brave, qualities beyond the strength classes and levels can give. Elma doesn't think he'll find a more reliable ally than her. Apart from XP, the Heavy Knight and Jester also obtained the title Unexpected Upset. It's an award for defeating the Dream Lord with a party member count of 2 or less, and 70% below the recommended level. And the effect is quite nifty. Elma and Luz will have 15% more attack and agility when fighting a higher level opponent. But that's not all. Thanks to Luz's luck stat and buffs, they've got 2 twin swords, each valued at 2.4 million gold. Yup, that's the Jester for you. She can casually find rare drops just like that. But Elma does realize it'll take him some, or a lot, of courage to wield those weapons. Speaking of drops, the Heavy Knight's curious about the embryo's loot. He asks Luz if she saw a wind element enchanted bow lying around. But nothing like that seems to be here. It looks like they're not that lucky. From the dissipating remains of the embryo, Elma spots something rectangular. It's a skill book called Intermediate Wind Magic, valued at 20 million gold. Noticing her companion's weird demeanor, Luz asks why Elma's trying to hide the item. The Heavy Knight looks squarely at the Jester. They've just got their hands on something ridiculous. If people found out, they'd be killed for this. Elma thinks this is something they should let the old hag handle. Just as they've secured the loot, the entire place trembles and slowly turns to dust. What the heck is happening? Elma tells Luz not to worry. Since they defeated the boss, the dungeon will disappear. They'll be teleported to the entrance shortly. Luz is understandably surprised. So much has happened in just one day. Hearing that, Elma knows it's probably not the right time to say this, but he'll say it anyway. From his rough calculations, the rewards they obtained from this dungeon dive total more than 60 million gold. And that's the Jester's cue to faint in shock. Yup, that was not a good time to tell her that. Somewhere in town, Klein curses their bad luck. With just him and Reese, their party's efficiency dropped by a mile. They didn't even get a single heal shroom, which was supposed to be a near certain drop. And that's after defeating 4 Mentangos. Reese side-eyes the swordsman. Isn't this proof they were getting drops before because of Luz's great fortune? But Klein believes it's just a coincidence. He would have let the Jester off if she'd shut her trap about a share of the bloodstained sword. Still, Reese wonders if they should call Luz back. Klein glares at the bandit. Even he has a sense of pride. Does Reese think he can just call the Jester back after everything he told her? Klein's not lowering his head to Luz, even if it costs his life. Fortunately, they have some extra money, thanks to the rare sword. They just have to take their time and look for some low-level adventurer that follows orders. As they enter the Adventurers Guild, they see it's jam-packed today. Did someone defeat a high-level monster or something? From the murmurs, Klein hears a newly promoted E-rank and an F-rank beat the Angel's Toy Box dungeon recommended for at least level 50 adventurers. To the swordsman's surprise, standing before the guild receptionist counter is Elma and Luz. The Heavy Knight explains to the receptionist that they weren't trying to defeat the dungeon back then. The Dream Lord just happened to attack them. If they have doubts, 2 adventurers were dragged into the mess. The guild can ask them. The receptionist understands, but because the city has set up a conquest reward for the Angel's Toy Box, the guild will need to investigate further. Dungeons near towns and villages sometimes get conquest requests. If left unattended for too long, monsters begin to exit the dungeons. After that, abnormal situations in the area caused by monster-related disasters will become more common. The recommended level of a dungeon is largely based on its location, and there are distinct areas where low or high-level dungeons appear. Some say it's because of the mana in the earth, while some suppose it's due to the sleeping god Alzero's power. High-level adventurers focus their activity around towns where dangerous dungeons tend to appear. That way, they get to farm better, and it's also beneficial for the kingdom. As such, no one in Rondalm City could defeat the Angel's Toy Box, and the mayor, fearing it would be left for too long, set a reward for its conquest. Since Elma didn't think they'd be that lucky, he didn't even check whether there'd be a conquest reward. So, how much was it? 10 million gold. Klein feels as though he's been strangled. 10 million? Is this the effect of great fortune? From their expressions, Klein guesses they got some rare drops from the dungeon's boss. That Elma guy scouted Luz the moment he found out she had great fortune. Then suddenly, they went after big prey. And now, faced with 10 million gold, they don't even flinch. Just how much did they make? The receptionist moves on to another topic. As per the guild's rules, Elma and Luz will be promoted to D-rank adventurers. That means Luz will be skipping 1 rank. That's another dagger through Klein's soul. Reese remarks how it looks like Luz has become unreachable just like that, but her companion's unresponsive. Instead, the swordsman stomps toward the new D-ranks. Proving he's not a man of his word, Klein doesn't just lower his head before Luz. He prostrates himself as he apologizes and begs Luz to return to their party. If she accepts, they'll split the money from the bloodstained sword 3 ways. Elma and Luz stare wordlessly at the swordsman before exiting the Adventurers Guild. After that pathetic display, Reese is beyond amazed by her companion's shamelessness. The new D-ranks convene at a fancy-looking restaurant. Apart from being promoted, 10 million fell into their lap, all because of a happy accident. After rising to D rank, the upper limit on skill points is now 45. Not to mention that, Smoldering Fang of Madness is now within Elma's reach. Seeing her companion in such a pensive mood, Luz wonders if something's wrong. The Heavy Knight apologizes. They're here instead of a tavern because they're celebrating, so he should relax and enjoy it instead of planning his next moves. Holding the menu, Luz beams at the chance to order whatever and as much as they want. After all, Elma suggested it, and she's been dreaming of doing this at the alchemist stove for ages. In Luz's dream, she'd come to this restaurant with all her party members once she made it big as an adventurer. At the time, the jester was planning to come with Reese and Klein, but that ship has sailed. As Luz flips the menu, her eyes widen at an 8,000 gold dish. To think the king crab pie with black fungus sauce was this expensive, and she was about to order it too. Luz flips the page. They need to look for something that's not more than 4,000 gold a plate. But before the jester can find something she likes, Elma orders the 8,000 gold dish. It seems like Luz still isn't used to having so much money. Now that they have their food, Elma suggests briefly discussing how they'll split the rewards. First is the skill book. Does Luz want to use it? There's plenty of value in her learning intermediate wind magic. Before answering, Luz asks if Elma won't use it. He doesn't think it's a bad skill tree, but the Heavy Knight wants to aim higher than that. After all, he's decided how he wants to develop his skills. So, is Luz sure she doesn't want it? If she has the skill tree, she won't have problems looking for parties in the future. The jester smiles at her companion. She's certain she doesn't want it because she wants to aim higher too. And hey, they just met. Wouldn't it be sad for them to split up just like that? Elma sighs. He guesses they'll be selling the skill book instead. And frankly, he's thankful. Hearing that, Luz wonders if her companion's short on money. With all the deductions, the total from their dungeon dive is about 57 million gold. So, splitting that 80-20, Luz gets 46 million gold and Elma gets 11 million. The jester slams her hands on the table in surprise. Was the Heavy Knight serious about that split? There's no way she can accept such an unfair division. Where does that 80-20 even come from? Elma says it's quite a common ratio, but Luz is having a hard time believing that. Would Elma accept this kind of split if he was in her shoes? Luz can't even thank him enough for raising her level this high. In the Heavy Knight's defense, he genuinely thought 80-20 was quite the appropriate standard. Elma and Luz don't end up reaching an agreement on how to split the money. To properly sell their items, they visit Shattered Grimoire Hall. The shopkeeper's amused that the Heavy Knight has returned. He even has a cutie with him as his party member. Elma cuts to the chase and narrows his eyes at the old hag. You still have that, right? Isn't this guy distrustful? Of course the shopkeeper still has Smoldering Fang of Madness. She works based on trust, after all. Luz looks around the shop as her companion and the old lady talk. Huh, so this shop has something Elma wants. The shopkeeper shifts her attention to the jester. She looks like a good kid. Is the Heavy Knight planning on making her learn that skill tree? But that's absurd. Elma has no such ill will. The skill book is for him, that's for sure. Whomever it's for, wanting a skill tree like that makes the Heavy Knight an odd fellow to the shopkeeper. Before their conversation spirals into nonsense, Elma presents the items he'd like the old hag to assess. Though for someone as intelligent as him, the shopkeeper wouldn't have expected he'd sell his items off to her in the first place. Elma doesn't respond and instead places 4 swords on the table. The old lady is astonished. 2 golden lana swords? If she knew the Heavy Knight had this on him, she'd given him a warmer welcome. It looks like she missed her chance. Cutting the chit-chat, Elma declares he doesn't want to haggle. He's selling these items for 30 million gold. If the old hag wants to haggle it down. Old hag, haggle, get it? He'll have to look for another store. But demanding 30 million from a legit store is a tough sell. If the Heavy Knight wants to avoid needless risks, the shopkeeper suggests he part with these items for 25 million gold. This old hag. Even when Elma said he didn't want to haggle, there she goes, haggling around. Luz thinks the shopkeeper has a point though. After all, 25 million is still a lot of money. But that thinking is a rookie mistake. If they show any weakness, the old hag will hone them in. Elma says that, but he knows 30 million really is a big ask. Other shops couldn't possibly buy it for that much. Weighing the risks, selling the items here is the best option. Still, if they let the old hag have her way, they'll undersell their items. With that, Elma decides it'll be better to hold onto their swords until a good opportunity arises. So yeah, he can't be extorted, old hag, but she's not one to give up so easily. Not when the shopkeeper knows she has the skill book the Heavy Knight wants. The old hag's got him there, so it's time for Elma to bring out the big guns. He's got another item he'd like the shopkeeper to appraise. Oh, it's nothing special. Just the skill book the Dream Lord dropped. The shopkeeper struggles to speak. For the Heavy Knight and the Jester to get their hands on a skill book in such a short time, she's astonished. In the near future, the shopkeeper believes they'll be applauded as the next hero party. So, if they're selling rather than using the skill book, she'll gladly take it off their hands. It's obvious to Elma that the old hag's interested. Now, how much can he knock up the price? The market value of this item is 20 million gold. But with a ban on selling and buying skill books, just having this item places the shopkeeper in a dangerous position. If the Heavy Knight surrenders the skill book to the guild, they'd probably give him around 7 million gold. Since the shopkeeper thinks he's skilled enough, she's willing to throw a little extra as a show of good faith. All that's to say, 14 million gold's her best offer. Oh, so that's how it is. Elma knows whether he surrenders it to the guild or sells it to the shopkeeper, this skill book will appear on the shelves again at an exorbitant price. He can find numerous people who'd want an intermediate magic skill book. So, if the old lady really wants to show them good faith, she needs to buy the item for 22 million gold. And that demand from the Heavy Knight makes the old hag go off. It's clear she's the greedy one here, but perhaps it's the nature of her shop to wring customers dry. To stop the argument from escalating, Luz sheepily asks how much Smoldering Fang of Madness is. It's 55 million, but only after the shopkeeper knocked it up from 30 million. That's still a lot more expensive than Luz initially thought. But that's when it hits the Jester. How about they trade the skill book and swords for the Smoldering Fang of Madness? The shopkeeper quickly shuts down her preposterous idea. But wait, this Jester's actually a genius. Exchanging the skill book that few people want for easy-to-sell items is a good deal. And since the Heavy Knight seems desperate for the Smoldering Fang of Madness, that'll be a win-win situation. Not that the old lady would admit any of that. The shopkeeper instead advises the little girl not to intrude on business negotiations. But she'll accept the deal because she's willing to bet that much on the future hero party. This old lady really knows how to butter up her customers, huh? Luz beams at the shopkeeper's answer, but Elma's not so quick to accept this deal because doing so means his companion won't get her share of the rewards. Luz says it's not a problem for her. Elma can think of it as a thank you gift. Still, the Heavy Knight can't be convinced. How can he ask Luz for more when she's already done so much for him? And just because their party did well in this dungeon dive doesn't guarantee they'll do well next time. What if their party disbands not long after this? Luz looks up at Elma with narrowed eyes. He better not be thinking of abandoning her because that's what his words seem to imply. But hey, Elma's just saying those things as a what-if scenario. If that's the case, then there's no problem. Luz pulls Elma to the counter as she seals the deal with the shopkeeper. They better get this exchange done before the Heavy Knight changes his mind. The shopkeeper commends the Jester for her masterful convincing. Oh, but she better hold tight to the Heavy Knight so he doesn't run away. Wink wink. For some reason, Luz and the old hag are getting along, and Elma has no idea why. In a prison cell, 3 burly men sit shackled in various ways. The sword saint Marie enters the cell and raises her blade. Blood splatters on the wall as the detained men's screams fill the room. One man is lucky enough to receive multiple stabs from the noblewoman. An attendant steps in to stop the needless violence, informing Marie that life shifting has ended. Though irritated at being interrupted, the sword saint yields. As she stands, her mind is filled with the thought of Elma. Even though the former heir was exiled, Marie has always known he wasn't the type to simply give up. She needed to give her dear Elma time and a bit of a push. Later that day, Lord Isis is furious at hearing the son he disowned has been doing as he pleases in Rondalm City. A servant of the Edvan Household, Thomas, reports that they have yet to verify the information, but an individual closely resembling Elma has been producing extraordinary results in the city. Verified or not, to Isis, it's obvious his exiled son is using the family name to leverage with the Adventurers Guild. To think he'd further besmirch the Edvan household. That boy better not think they're still family. As respectfully as possible, Thomas declares Lord Elma is a virtuous and sensible man. As such, the servant believes he wouldn't stoop down to such uncouth behavior. If Lord Izas allows it, Thomas volunteers to verify the situation himself. Izas looks squarely at the servant as he permits him to do as he requests. If Elma did use the Edvan name, Thomas must order the guild to expel the fool and forbid him from re-entry. As for the insolent boy, he must know that if he pulls this kind of stunt again, Izas will be taking his life. A knock on the door interrupts the master and the servant's conversation. Marie apologizes for the intrusion, but Izas is more than happy to see her, and as she is his successor, he reminds the noblewoman to drop the formalities and call him father. Marie's response to this reminder is silence before she gets straight to the point. She believes Izas is being too soft, likely the effect of Thomas doting too much on Elma. Kicking the exiled Edvan out of the guild is a half-baked punishment. They must limit his options further. If Elma becomes a bandit due to his folly, he'll further besmirch the Edvan name. Izas recognizes his successor's fine points. However, he wants to know what her plan is exactly. With bold determination in her fiery eyes, Marie states they must observe the exiled man and directly pass on judgment. Somewhere in town, Elma's cradling his head in disbelief. They really bought Smoldering Fang of Madness. Luce reiterates that it's fine. Think of it as a present from her. After all, Elma bought her Iron Piercer. But that doesn't ease the Heavy Knight's guilt one bit. He bought that knife because he knew they needed it for the Golden Lanas. It was an investment that would pay for itself sooner or later. So will the skill book they bought not pay for itself? Elma assures Luce that it will before drinking in the sight of the long-awaited item. Its description is vague and bizarre, to say the least. The user of the Smoldering Fang of Madness shan't be approached. Even the Grim Reaper will not approach one whose rampage keeps dragging their broken body forward, keeps moving their torn tail, knowing no end. No wonder the shopkeeper thought Elma was weird for wanting the skill book. Even Luce can tell by the item's description that it has some strange drawbacks, which worries her. But Elma assures his companion that Smoldering Fang of Madness is unmistakably strong. With enough skill points, this will change the entire playing field. This skill tree will give Elma skills that allow him to fight by putting his life on the line. Combining those skills with the Heavy Knight skills will then give him an absurd amount of power. Without further ado, Elma activates the skill book. His status board shows, and he removes his defense up skill tree. Instantly, Smoldering Fang of Madness takes its place. Elma proudly shows his skill tree to Luce. This happened all thanks to her. The jester giggles. The Heavy Knight's happiness is just that infectious. So, will he use his skill points immediately? Elma won't for now, since he knows he'll first need to upgrade his class-specific skill tree Vow of the Heavy Armor. After that, he'll see how it goes. The party of two convenes at the Adventurers Guild to plan their next move, like upgrading equipment before taking on requests. As they converse, a man boldly enters the building, and it's someone Elma knows all too well. The guild leader comes out to welcome Lord Izas. What business could he have with their humble guild? Without a preamble, the nobleman orders the guild leader to clear the room. He has important matters to discuss. The guild leader makes the mistake of not doing exactly as he's told. Izas glares at the incompetent fool, reiterating his order. Witnessing the troublesome exchange from afar, Elma motions for Luce and him to leave. The jester's gaze lingers on the esteemed guests, noting how she's never had a good impression of the Edvan household, and seeing Lord Izas in the flesh, Luce can't help but feel creeped out by his oppressive attitude. Before the party of two can leave, Izas orders them to stay. That makes Luce tremble, thinking the nobleman must have heard her comments, but Elma tells her to calm down. It's him that the nobleman wants. Lord Izas emits a menacing aura as he stares down at his insolent, sorry excuse for a son. The Heavy Knight returns the nobleman's glare, demanding to know what business he has with him.
Hold your tongue. Who do you think you are?
The booming voice of the nobleman terrifies Luce. She berates Elma for being rude and urges for them to apologize to the noble. Marie approaches the jester, who seems quite close to the Heavy Knight. What is she to Elma? But she doesn't get her answer. Elma tells Luce to step outside for a bit. This is his problem. But as the jester has learned to be quite stubborn, she refuses to leave him when he looks so troubled. So a mere peasant dares to interfere with Lord Izas. He demands the young girl to leave at once, but Marie stops her father. They should let the girl stay as she seems close to Elma. Lord Izas is silent for a moment before he consents. After all, he did promise his daughter he'll let her handle the exiled man. Oblivious to the rising tensions, the guild leader approaches the nobleman. Is Count Isis here to recruit the adventurers as private soldiers after hearing how promising they are? If so, he's impressed by how fast news travels. And the Count couldn't have made a better choice. The Heavy Knight is both courteous and brave, a name sure to go down in history. Isis cuts off the guild leader's bedazzled statement, demanding he stops feigning innocence. He already knows this man belongs to the Edvan household, does he not? The unrestrained shock on the guild leader's face should be enough of an answer. No, he doesn't know. But Isis continues his accusation. Someone in this guild is conspiring with this brat. He orders all of them to be seized and taken away. Still beyond bewildered, the guild leader tries to reason with the nobleman, but the Count's menacing glare says it all. He will not be reasoned with. Luz stares in shock at her companion. Does this mean Lord Isis is Elma's father? The Heavy Knight hates admitting it, but that's the truth. The Count turns to his insolent son as he speaks with vitriol. Did Elma forget what he said? If he dares take on the name Count Edvan, he'll have his head cut off. Silence follows the nobleman's outburst before Elma tries to speak as calmly as possible. He was wondering what this was all about, but to think that all this hoopla was for that lame accusation. Elma looks squarely at Isis as he declares he has done no such thing. Luz even backs him up, all her fear of the nobleman gone. But Isis isn't so easily convinced. He grabs the Heavy Knight by the strap on his armor, ready to take things beyond words with the insolent brat. Marie stops her father from doing anything hasty. After all, they're only here to investigate. She then turns her attention to the Heavy Knight. He's around level 40, right? Then that's good timing. Marie just finished her life shifting and hit level 45, so she's itching to verify her power with some live training. How about it? Will Elma be the Sword Saint's sparring partner? Isis instantly shuts down the preposterous idea. Who cares about the outcome of a fight between a Heavy Knight and a Sword Saint? The winner's clear as day, even without them crossing swords. But Elma accepts the mock battle on one condition. If Isis recognizes his strength, he better stay the hell out of his life after this. The nobleman can only curse the insolent brat for such a request. As for Marie, she's ecstatic. She knows it has to be this way. The Sword Saint and Heavy Knight face each other, prepared to battle. Isis believes Marie already knows this, but he reminds her not to kill her opponent. Luz looks on in horror as she tells her companion he's being reckless, but the spectators' words fall on deaf ears. The fighters are already in their own little world. Elma notes how they haven't had a mock battle since they were kids. Honestly, he didn't think Marie would hate him this much. The Sword Saint smirks before charging forward. Instantly, she's well within striking distance of her opponent, but the Heavy Knight blocks her attack with a strike of his own. Marie jumps to dodge, landing gracefully on the receptionist's counter. She's relieved she can have some fun. After all, this will be the last time Marie and the man she admired dearly will play with each other. The difference between a Heavy Knight and a Sword Saint is like heaven and earth. As such, Marie will be courteous enough to give herself a handicap, starting with not using her left arm. Elma stands ready to block the Sword Saint's slice with a shield, but the force proves strong enough to push him back. He barely holds his own as Marie executes a barrage of sword strikes. The final blow of the Sword Saint's chain attack finally penetrates the Heavy Knight's defense, making his HP drop from 100 to 61. Isis notes how stubborn Elma is for no good reason, and that's why he's ended up as Marie's plaything. Elma grits his teeth, knowing he lost 40% of his HP. Now, it's time to retaliate. He lowers his shield before raising his sword. Marie sneers at the Heavy Knight's clunky movements, but her arrogance makes her completely unprepared for Elma's shadow stomp. With the Sword Saint unable to move, the Heavy Knight strikes with a vital blow, sending his opponent skidding across the room. Luz beams at the direct hit Elma made. At the same time, the nobleman is in disbelief. With the difference in their classes, the likelier explanation for Elma landing a hit is that Marie was just careless. The Heavy Knight knows his attack power is small, but that hit should have done its job. Although, tricks like what he did only work once. Thanks to the speed boost from unexpected upset, Elma finally got a hit in. But Marie is quite annoyed now. She glares as she moves swiftly in front of her opponent. Her strike is powerful, yet the Heavy Knight blocks it with one of his own. Marie lands a distance away from Elma. She's glad he's still holding up. After all, she was quite worried their time together would end too quickly. In honor of Elma landing a hit, Marie will show him a Sword Saint skill, Vigra Barrage. Luz can't believe her eyes. Elma's opponent vanished. Instantly, Marie reappears, her sword pointed straight at the Heavy Knight's head. Elma barely manages to block the attack before another comes straight at him. Raising a shield just in time, the Heavy Knight tanks the strike. But just as Elma's feeling relieved at having survived the Sword Saint's attack, another slice comes. He fails to dodge this time, coughing out blood as his HP drops. Luz trembles, tears pooling in her eyes. This fight is just too one-sided. Marie grins before putting some distance between her and the opponent. Though Elma still stands valiantly, she knows her hit did quite the damage. Soon enough, the Heavy Knight falls on one knee, gripping his sword for support. Marie blushes as she gives Elma a wide, deranged smile. Should she just end this fight now? Luz screams for the Sword Saint to stop. Elma's at his limit. But contrary to the jester's words, the Heavy Knight speaks to his opponent with cold determination. He had 3 objectives in this fight. First was to see Marie's skill with his own eyes. Second, determine a definite opening she'll have. And lastly, get his health down below 40%. Marie narrows her eyes at Elma. Is he expecting her to be scared of his crappy bluff? The Heavy Knight continues. Magic Sword Mizugarasu's ability score and Marie's current level. He has calculated everything. With this, Elma can finally put his skill points into Smoldering Fang of Madness. Luz helped him get it just in time. She inspired him to stay calm while fighting. Elma's sure Luz was terrified to speak against the Count, yet she's here supporting him. And that's why he'll win this fight. What a load of bull. If there's one thing the Heavy Knight's succeeding at in this fight, that's irritating Marie to no end. But Elma's not bluffing. From the skill points he poured into Smoldering Fang of Madness, he has acquired Half-Dead Savage Dragon. This skill only activates when the user is below 20% HP. A simple blunder in activating this could result in death before even meeting the condition. But Heavy Knights have a skill that can overcome Half-Dead Savage Dragon's fatal downside. Raising his sword, Elma activates his normal skill, Life Shield. By paying 20% of his maximum HP, his entire body is covered in a shield with a durability equal to the amount of HP he paid. Is this supposed to be a secret tactic? Because to Isas, using Life Shield means Elma is getting desperate. But the Heavy Knight looks squarely at his opponent, declaring he'll finish this fight in one fell swoop. As Elma wordlessly activates Half-Dead Savage Dragon, his body crackles with a strange yet deadly power. It's time he showed the Sword Saint the true power of the Heavy Knight class. Marie tries to mask her uneasiness with her arrogance, but her opponent doesn't even let her finish speaking. Instantly, Elma appears from right under her nose. Marie grits her teeth as she blocks the Heavy Knight's attack with her magic sword. She can't believe that Elma's speed and power are nearly at the level of a Sword Saint. That's because with Half-Dead Savage Dragon and Unexpected Upset, the Heavy Knight's attack and agility increased by 115%. With this, Elma has overturned his disadvantage in stats. But Marie isn't giving up so easily. She swings her blade fluidly before landing to strike the Heavy Knight's sword. This man really is interesting. Elma's keeping Marie entertained to no end. To return the favor, the Sword Saint tells the Heavy Knight her favorite story, the tale of the wax-winged angel. Born wingless, the angel was cast down to earth. She kept dreaming about heaven, so she made wings out of wax and took flight into the sky. But the wax melted due to the sun's heat, making the angel fall and die. That's Marie's favorite part of the story. She loves seeing people struggle beyond their capabilities, only to fail. She loves it when people break. And if that person is Elma, someone Marie has always admired, then it's even better. The Heavy Knight narrows his eyes before parrying his opponent's blade. Sorry, but that's not happening. Marie smirks. That parry Elma's so proud of is just an inferior version of her Sword Saint skill, Flowing Water. But to Marie's surprise, the Heavy Knight delays his strike, making her parry ineffective. The tables have turned now. The Sword Saint Marie is stuck defending herself, while the defense-oriented class keeps her on her toes. Elma states a matter-of-fact truth. Marie couldn't corner him even when their stats had a massive difference. That's all there is to it. If that's the case, the Sword Saint will just have to use Vagrant Barrage again. The first swing, the second, and then the third. Elma blocks them all. There's one big opening in the Sword Saint's Vagrant Barrage, and he'll be a fool not to take advantage of it. As Marie goes in for a fourth strike, Elma sends her sword flying in one fell swoop. Vagrant Barrage increases the body's strength for a single instant. The number of consecutive hits Marie can launch depends on her talent and competency, so she should have stopped at 3 swings. Marie grits her teeth before rushing towards the Heavy Knight, yelling at the top of her lungs, her fist raised. Even though she's lost her weapon, she's still trying to win. Marie's tenacity impresses her opponent at least. When the Sword Saint's fist collides with the shield, Elma activates Shield Bash. Game, set, match. The Heavy Knight wins. The realization slowly dawns on Luz, and when it does, she rushes to hug Elma, letting her tears fall. Luz wanted to believe he'll win, but that girl was terrifying. She was so close to killing the Heavy Knight, so you can't blame Luz for worrying. Elma pats the jester's head. He won all thanks to her. Now, about that girl. Elma tells Luz not to worry. Marie is just unconscious. As for the Count, his face is covered in cold sweat. Isis can't believe that Marie, a sword saint, was defeated by a Heavy Knight. All he can do now is fall to his knees beside his beaten successor. So, is Count Isis ready to acknowledge the power of the man he exiled? As Elma finally obtains the last piece he needs to make his Heavy Knight class powerful beyond belief, his unbelievable achievements reach his father's ears. Their confrontation results in the perfect chance for the Heavy Knight to prove his might and skill to the doubtful Lord Isis. But despite everything Elma has shown, could the prideful and arrogant nobleman truly acknowledge him? No matter what Isis, Marie, or anyone says, Elma knows it in his heart. The Heavy Knight is a powerful class, and the world will soon recognize that.